You know, there are very few things the internet enjoys more than ruining a city's reputation. It takes maybe 3 popular videos, 1 crime stat out of context, a clip of a homeless camp, and suddenly the whole country has decided this entire city or state is basically unlivable. It's like digital mob justice. The internet really doesn't do nuance. It doesn't say, well, the city has some problems, but also has some good neighborhoods, decent jobs, and a pretty strong food scene. No, that would be responsible. The internet prefers, this place is doomed, burn it down, move to a cabin in Montana, and learn how to fight bears with bow and arrow. I try not to do that. I'm also not perfect. But when it comes to locations, real life doesn't work like that. A lot of the places that get clowned nonstop online are actually fine. Some are more than fine. They just have a bad stat or 10. Now, before the comment section starts foaming at the mouth, let me say this. None of these places are perfect. Every state on this list, every city on this list has its issues. Some have housing problems, some have government problems, some have traffic so bad you age like cheese sitting on a dashboard in Phoenix. But the truth is, they're not as bad as the internet wants you to believe. Stick around to the end because number 1 on this list might be the single most over-dramatized city in modern American history. People online talk about it like it's Gotham City if Gotham City had bicycles and turn-of-the-century facial hair. Let's take a look. Number 10, New Jersey. New Jersey has been a national punching bag so long, I'm pretty sure kids in Nebraska come out of the womb already knowing a few dated jokes about the Jersey Shore or the Sopranos. The internet treats New Jersey like one giant turnpike exit wrapped in concrete, body odor, and unresolved anger. According to online experts, it smells terrible, everyone's rude, there's no beauty anywhere, and every resident is either an organized crime or yelling at someone at a Wawa parking lot. And yeah, if your only experience with New Jersey is flying to Newark, sitting in traffic, and seeing the industrial corridor from the highway, I get why you'd think it's America's armpit. And to be honest, that part of the Garden State hasn't inspired many poems or fine art. It looks like a place where raccoons have union jobs and sour dispositions. But that's not the whole state, not even close. New Jersey actually has a ton of really nice towns, beautiful suburbs, shore communities, historic neighborhoods, state parks, farmland, and enough good food to make half the country jealous. Diners here alone deserve federal protection. They're diners though, man, honestly. It's like where dreams go to get gravy on them. New Jersey diners aren't just some place you go to get dinner. It's a cultural movement in this state. Now, a fact about Jersey is a lot of the people who trash the state would absolutely move there if they found the right town and could afford it. People act like the entire state is still radioactive. In case you don't know, at one point they had more Superfund sites than any state in the union. Most of that is cleaned up, and it is very livable. Now, does New Jersey have problems? Of course. The property taxes are high enough to make your mortgage file a police report. Some areas are crowded. The roads and drivers can be sketchy. There's also a northeastern attitude that can be a little aggressive, but aggressive doesn't mean bad. Sometimes it just means nobody has time for your nonsense. And that's a big thing in New Jersey. They don't have time for your nonsense. And honestly, it's kind of refreshing, but it's also part of Jersey's issue. It's got terrible branding. It lives next to New York City and Philly, so everyone treats it like a storage closet for the region. But real people live there, raise families there, retire there, and enjoy their life there without ever once staring into a reality show of fist-fighting cousins at a christening. New Jersey isn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but the internet acts like the whole place is some greasy cautionary tale that's just plain lazy. And speaking of lazy reputations, our next state got turned into memes so hard people started acting like it wasn't a real place. Number 9, Ohio. Ohio has become the strangest victim of internet culture. At some point, the entire internet collectively decided Ohio was the funniest state to bully. Not Florida, where every third news story sounds like it was written by a guy on cough syrup and Adderall. Not California, where you need a second mortgage to buy a sandwich in some neighborhoods. Ohio, just regular, decent, middle-of-the-road Ohio. Now, the meme has gone so far that people talk about Ohio like it's a cursed alternative dimension. Like if you stop for gas in Toledo, you get dragged into a cornfield by demons wearing cargo shorts. But in reality, Ohio is just kind of normal. And I mean that in a good way, not in a bad way. Ohio has affordable cities, decent suburbs, major universities, pro sports, good hospitals, and enough economic variety that people can actually build a life there. Columbus has grown a lot and has become one of the more important cities in the Midwest. Cincinnati has charm people don't expect. Cleveland, believe it or not, has improved way more than people give it credit for. The internet still talks about Cleveland like the river still catches fire every so often. I'm guilty of that one. I think that's a hysterical story. Sad and hysterical at the same time. The water caught fire. That's how frickin' polluted the river was once. And yeah, parts of Ohio are kind of boring. But do you know what boring often means? Stable, affordable, predictable. Not everyone wants to live in a place where rent costs $3,000 and your reward is a bunch of strangers named Skylar and Aspen. Ohio's biggest crime, honestly, it's not cool. It's not flashy. It's not trendy. It's not coastal. And it's not constantly congratulating itself for having bike lanes and fermented juice bars. It's just a practical state where people buy houses, raise kids, complain about the winter, and go to frickin' work. Sort of how this country was supposed to be. It's like the 1950s with different clothes, newer cars, and different music. The internet hates that kind of place because it doesn't know what to do with a place that isn't either glamorous or horrifying. If the internet can't romanticize about it, it mocks it. Ohio is hard to turn into a fantasy. It's not a beach paradise, it's not a mountain wonderland, and it's not some southern fever dream where everyone sells candles and antique signs. It's just a state that works better than people want to admit. Now, are there struggling towns? Absolutely. Are there rough cities and old industrial scars? Of course. But the online version of Ohio has become so detached from reality, it might as well be fan fiction. And wait till we get to the next city on this list. It's got a worse reputation than Ohio and every single city in it. Number 8, Detroit, Michigan. Yes, on this video we are talking about cities and states. Detroit is one of those cities that got hit so hard and for so long that people started confusing its reputation with its permanent identity. For years, Detroit was a go-to example for urban collapse. Empty factories, abandoned houses, population loss, crime, bankruptcy, broken streetlights, and sad drone footage of empty neighborhoods. Now, I'm under no illusion that Detroit hasn't had it bad. It absolutely went through some stuff. There's no point in pretending otherwise. The city suffered decades of economic decline, disinvestment, white flight, corruption, job losses, and neighborhood abandonment on a scale that would have broken a lot of places completely. Detroit earned a lot of its bad press. That's just the truth. But the internet never got the update. A lot of people online still talk about Detroit like the whole city is frozen in its worst era. Like nobody lives there except for ghosts, scrappers, and one guy making techno music in his basement. Detroit, to this day though, is still complicated. It's just not the same city people remember from the worst headlines. Downtown has seen major investment. Midtown has life now. There are neighborhoods with strong community roots, beautiful old homes, local businesses, and people who genuinely care about where they live. That matters. Detroit also has something a lot of trendier cities are missing: identity. It doesn't feel like it was assembled from some starter pack as every other up-and-coming place in America. It has edge, history, scars, music, grit, pride, and enough stories to fill 5 channels. But no one should sugarcoat Detroit's problems. Some neighborhoods still struggle deeply. Crime remains an issue in certain areas. Public services have not magically become flawless. This is not some fairy tale comeback where everything is now artisan cupcakes and rooftop yoga. But it's not dead. And that's the key point. Detroit's not a lost cause. It's a real city full of real neighborhoods, real people, real momentum, and real potential. The internet just prefers the old narrative because that's just easier. Detroit has a long way to go. The good news is it hit rock bottom some time ago and it's working its way out of that. I saw one of those AI videos about a week ago and it was a newer video and they made it sound like Detroit was still this desolate wasteland from downtown to midtown to every suburb. It's just not true. The people of Detroit have put a lot of work into that city. Should you pack up and move there today? Probably not. Give it another 5 or 10 years and I think Detroit will have something to offer to most Americans. And honestly, I'm pulling for Detroit. They've been down long enough. Number 7, Los Angeles, California. The internet talks a lot about Los Angeles like it's one big strip mall filled with vanity, traffic, and people trying to become famous by whispering into a microphone and calling it a podcast. And again, part of that is fair. LA absolutely has some nonsense. The traffic is legendary. The housing costs are cartoonishly stupid. There are people there that refer to themselves as brands with a straight face. And honestly, I've had someone say that before and I think it's the stupidest freaking thing in the world. Oh my God, it's ridiculous. But the way people talk talk about Los Angeles online, you'd think there's nothing redeeming about it at all. Like it's just a giant expensive machine that turns ambition into rent payments and parking tickets. And that part's not really true. Los Angeles has a ridiculous amount going for it. The weather is outstanding most of the year. The food scene is one of the best in the country. You have beaches, mountains, hiking, major arts and entertainment, some of the most diverse neighborhoods anywhere, and enough things to do that boredom is basically a personal choice. And that's what a lot of people mistake about Los Angeles. LA is not one place. It's a giant patchwork of neighborhoods, lifestyles, industries, cultures, and little worlds that fit together like a puzzle. If you approach it like a singular city experience, you're going to hate it. If you learn how to live in your part of it, the place starts making a lot more sense. A lot of the internet criticism comes from people who expect Hollywood magic and got regular city with bills, traffic, and flawed human beings. That's not LA's fault. That's you being tricked by movies and your own bad expectations. Also, a lot of people visit LA completely wrong. They try to do too much, drive too far, and judge the entire city based on one soul-crushing afternoon on the 405 freeway. That's like going to Disney World on a holiday weekend and concluding all of Florida is a mistake, which granted is tempting, but it's not scientific or logical. Now, yes, Los Angeles has serious issues. Homelessness is a major problem. The cost of living is brutal. Some parts feel shallow. Some parts feel exhausted. And if you move there without money, patience, and a plan, the city will beat you up like a rented mule. Now, one of the biggest mistakes people have about Los Angeles, they claim it's the most dangerous city in the world. It's just ripe with crime. But when you rank the city by its crime rate, of the 200 largest cities, it's ranked 17th. It's not in the top 10. Even Compton, California, which everyone seems to think is a war zone, isn't what it was in the 1990s when it was pretty close to being a war zone. Compton's total crime rate is 108% above the national average. Compare that to some other major cities that have crime. Memphis, they have a total crime rate that's 344% above the national average. St. Louis, 234% above the national average. So Compton's not as bad as people think. And if you don't know, Compton is part of the Los Angeles metro area. I was born and raised west of there. There's a town called Carson in between where I grew up, Torrance, and Redondo Beach. And then there's Carson in between us and Compton. But millions of people still love Los Angeles for a reason. Because under all that fake smile and influencer jokes, there are a lot of real neighborhoods, real communities, real beauty, and a lifestyle that still appeals to a lot of people. It's not fake, it's just huge, messy, and easy to misunderstand. And speaking of places people misunderstand on purpose, part of the reason the next city has a bad reputation is politics. Number 6, Chicago, Illinois. If you only get your information from the internet, Chicago is apparently just nonstop gunfire and a side of deep dish pizza. That's it. The whole city, nobody works there, nobody raises families there, nobody enjoys the lakefront, the architecture, the museums, the parks, the food, the neighborhoods, or the sports. Nope. According to the internet scholars, the second you cross into the city limits, someone steals your catalytic converter and your optimism. The problem with Chicago is the narrative is lazy. Chicago is a massive city. Conditions vary widely. Like every American city, it has its problems. Bad neighborhoods, good neighborhoods, real struggles. In some places where life is just kind of normal. But the internet loves flattening complex cities into bumper sticker arguments. The biggest issue is the crime rate in Chicago. Everyone talks about that. Now, there's a backstory to this. Chicago has always had some crime problems. I mean, they have some really scary neighborhoods in the south side of Chicago, but most of the city is a decent place to live for a major city. People like to pretend it is the most dangerous city in the United States. It is not. I'm sure they have some neighborhoods that are, if you narrow it down to neighborhoods, they're the most dangerous, but it's really not. It's actually ranked 25th in the nation. That is because crime is ranked by rates. What is their crime rate? What is their violent crime rate? What is their murder rate? Chicago overall does have the most murders almost every single year, but they also have a city that has 2.7 million residents, with the metro area having 9.4 million. Let's compare it to one of the most dangerous cities in the United States. Memphis. Memphis has a population of 633,000 residents, with the metro area having 1.3 million. In 2025, Memphis had 15,338 violent crimes reported. Chicago, with its 9 million people in the metro area, only had 14,245. But when you look at the overall murders, Memphis had 249, and what a lot of internet personalities, what a lot of news channels like to tell you is about Chicago, how many they had. And in that same time frame, Chicago had 461. So Chicago saw 17.5 for every 100,000 residents. Memphis's rate, 40.6 for every 100,000 residents. But they just focus on that 400 number, and that's what they feed you. Now, there's a reason for this. Political parties find anything they can do to throw to the press to make someone else look bad. Their opponent. Both sides do it. I'm not saying they don't. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's bad. Back in 2008, Barack Obama was running for the White House. There wasn't much known about him at the time, so they had to find something. He's from Illinois. So for a year, they just pounded on how many murders Chicago has every single year without dealing with the rate or the facts or anything. They just showed you that number and said everyone's getting killed there. Now, is their murder rate high? Yes. Do they have a lot of murders? Yes. Is it one of the most dangerous cities in the United States? Absolutely not. It's not even in the top 10. That is why most people think Chicago is just a war zone. Now, yes, some neighborhoods have really bad crime issues. No honest person should pretend otherwise, but acting like the whole city is some kind of active war zone is nonsense pushed by people who either don't know any better or don't care. They just have an agenda. They talk about Chicago the same way people talk about sharks after watching one documentary and skipping every statistic. What they never mention is Chicago is one of the most beautiful and functional big cities in America when it's at its best. The skyline is phenomenal. The lakefront is incredible. The architecture is world class. The museums are elite. The neighborhoods have real identity. The transit, while imperfect, still gives it a level of urban practicality most Sunbelt cities can only dream about while merging across 8 lanes of regret. And then there's the cost factor. Compared to New York, San Francisco, Boston, Los Angeles, Chicago can still look surprisingly attainable, especially if you want true big city experience without getting a bunch of plastic surgery and starting an OnlyFans account. That's why so many people who actually live in Chicago defend it so fiercely, because they know the online version is mostly nonsense. They know their city has rough spots, but they also know that it offers more than the doom merchants admit. Chicago's not perfect. The city can be cold enough in winter to make your face negotiate with God, but it's not the urban horror movie the internet pretends it is. Number 5, Albuquerque, New Mexico. Albuquerque gets hit with an odd combination of criticism. Some people drag it because of the crime, some people dismiss it because it's in New Mexico, which for some reason, some Americans think it's in another country. That's really strange. And then of course there's some people that base their opinions on Albuquerque by what they saw in Breaking Bad. Right there is a pretty bad PR package they have to overcome. Here's one thing most people don't know about Albuquerque. It is one of the most visually unique and culturally distinct cities in the country. It has amazing mountains, beautiful desert scenery, huge skies, and sunsets that look like the atmosphere itself is showing off. If you can't appreciate that, you probably think Olive Garden is fine dining. The architecture has character, the regional culture feels real, the food is fantastic, and unlike a lot of places that have become polished into oblivion, Albuquerque still feels connected to where it was and where it is now. That doesn't mean it doesn't have problems. They've got real crime issues. The economy is severely uneven. There are some neighborhoods you don't want to test your luck with after dark, but again, that's not the same as the whole city being a war zone. The internet often treats Albuquerque like one giant sketchy gas station with mountain views, and that's just ridiculous. But most of the people who actually like Albuquerque will tell you the same thing. It's not for everyone, but if it fits you, it really fits you. It has pace, style, and personality that a lot of people find refreshing after living in crowded, overpriced, over-curated cities where every building looks like it was designed by a committee trying to impress LinkedIn. Albuquerque is rough around the edges. There's no denying that. But is it horrible? Absolutely not. Number 4, Minneapolis, Minnesota. There are a lot of people online who talk about Minneapolis like it no longer exists, or it's just some giant hotbed of corruption. Again, most of this is political. At first, they came out and said that it was $18 billion in fraud. Well, $9 billion at first. Then they bumped it up to $18 billion. And now that all the investigations going on across all the different programs in Minnesota, they say it probably will be somewhere around $1 billion, which is bad, but not $18 billion bad. So right now the internet is ablaze with how Minnesota and especially Minneapolis is just this fraud-ridden hellhole. People should be arrested and all the entire government should be arrested in Minnesota. Okay, yeah, whatever. The people who did the fraud should be arrested. Anyone that turned a blind eye to it should be arrested. That's what happens when there's fraud. People get arrested. But it's definitely not the biggest fraud case we've had in the United States. Nowhere near it. Again, I want to reiterate, I'm not saying that this is good. It's just not as bad as they make it sound. People online act like the entire city, or state for that matter, is permanently destroyed. Nobody will ever come back, and now it's packs of wolves roaming the street and homeless men wandering the aisles of vacant Targets looking for scented candles. What they never tell you about is Minneapolis is still one of the more functional, educated, and livable large cities in the Midwest. It has a strong job market, a well-educated population, solid healthcare systems, a ton of parks, trails, lakes, and neighborhoods that remain attractive to professionals, families, and retirees who don't mind winter trying to murder them for 4 months every single year. The quality of life here is still pretty good by normal person standards, not internet standards, normal person standards. There's a difference. Internet standards are mostly set by people who think that if a city has one bad year, it should be bulldozed and replaced by a Buc-ee's. Now yes, Minneapolis has had its problems. Crime rose, public confidence took a hit, political battles got ugly. There are moments where the city's image took a massive beating, and some of that criticism was absolutely fair. But what happened next is what happens online. The criticism stopped being criticism and turned into mythology. And that's how we get numbers like $18 billion in fraud. Now, I say this knowing that there's ongoing investigations, and the numbers will change a little bit, but they are never going to get up to $18 billion. Some corners of the internet describe Minneapolis like it's in a permanent state of collapse. That's not analysis, that's cosplay with talking points. In reality, Minneapolis offers a lot. Good jobs, good infrastructure by American standards, strong public spaces, access to nature, cultural institutions, walkable neighborhoods in certain areas, a generally thoughtful, educated population. The city's reputation online now has almost no relationship to how the people experience day-to-day life here. And that's sort of the common thread for this whole list. The internet sees one chapter and insists that's the whole book. Number 3, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Philadelphia is one of the few cities in America that doesn't care whether you're comfortable, and I respect that, honestly. The internet loves mocking Philly. The people can be blunt, and there's always the faint sense that the city might either hug you or throw a battery at you depending on the sports schedule. It's loud, gritty, opinionated, and not necessarily interested in polishing itself for outsiders. Which is exactly why people love this city. Philadelphia has one of the strongest identities of any city in the United States. You can feel it in its row houses, its corner stores, the old brick, the history, the accent, the food, the attitude, the murals, the weird little neighborhood loyalties. Philly has a lot of personality in ways that a lot of newer boom towns simply will never have. But online, people focus mostly on the roughness. They talk about it online like the entire city is chaos, trash, sports rage, and potholes. And yes, Philly absolutely has grime. It has neighborhoods that struggle. It has city government moments that make you stare into the distance like you just got bad medical news. But it also has incredible history, dense walkability, excellent food, great medical institutions, culture, architecture, and a level of East Coast accessibility that make it a strong option for people who can't or don't want to pay New York City prices. Philly's issue isn't that it's bad, it's that it doesn't hide its flaws behind branding. And that honestly gets mistaken for failure all the time. Now, without a doubt, Kensington is a neighborhood in Philadelphia which is one of the worst in the nation. But that's not the whole city. History alone should sell a lot of people on Philadelphia. Number 2, Las Vegas, Nevada. Las Vegas might be the most misunderstood city in America by people who've never left the Strip. In reality, that's not even Las Vegas. That's a city called Paradise. But we're kind of talking about the Las Vegas metro area right here. Ask the internet about Vegas and you'll hear the same tired stuff. It's fake, it's trashy, it's all casinos, it's all tourists, it's all bad life decisions. A place built entirely on neon, alcohol, bachelor parties, and financial regret. And yes, the Strip is ridiculous. That's not in dispute. It is a glowing fever dream where a man dressed like Spider-Man can charge you $40 for a photo while someone loses their mortgage payment to a machine shaped like a leprechaun. But here's the thing. That's not all Las Vegas is. The actual metro area is full of regular neighborhoods, suburban developments, parks, schools, grocery stores, local restaurants, office parks, retirees, families, and all the normal stuff that make a city a city. There's plenty of residents whose daily lives almost have nothing to do with the tourist circus. And that shocks people who aren't from Las Vegas. Las Vegas also has some real advantages. No state income tax, generally newer housing stock compared to a lot of older metro areas, access to outdoor recreation, mountain views, plenty of shopping and dining, a lot of master plan communities that are surprisingly appealing if you can tolerate the summer that feels like the sun is personally angry at you. And honestly, the summers are no joke. I hate Las Vegas in the summer. But there are their problems. You can cook bad decisions on the hood of your car, water issues are a real concern, the economy is still heavily tied to tourism, and some people will never get over the fact that their hometown has more trees than the entire state of Nevada. But acting like Las Vegas is unlivable because tourists behave like idiots is silly. Tourists behave like idiots everywhere. Las Vegas just has better lighting. A lot of people who live in the metro area of Las Vegas genuinely like it. Not because they're trying to relive spring break forever, but because outside the strip, it functions more like a regular Sunbelt city than outsiders realize. All right, before we get to number 1, if you would be so kind as to give this video a like, I'd really appreciate it. That means a lot to the channel because that's what YouTube is looking for these days. All right, on to number 1. And number 1, Portland, Oregon. Portland might be the most over-dramatized city on the American internet. At this point, people online talk about Portland like it's a post-apocalyptic bicycle commute run by raccoons, fentanyl, and ukulele music. According to the internet, the whole place is collapsing at all times. Nothing works, no one has a job, and every street looks like the opening scene of a documentary called, well, that escalated quickly. But let's be honest, Portland has had serious problems. Homelessness, drug issues, public frustration, political dysfunction, and visible decline in some parts of the city are very real. Very real. Anyone pretending Portland's problems are fake is just doing tourism propaganda with a beard. On this channel in the last year or so, I've said it's getting better. Is it anywhere near being respectable in what it was, let's say, 2005? No, absolutely not. But it's not as bad as the internet wants you to believe. The internet turned Portland into a symbol, a stand-in for every cultural argument people want to have. So now when people talk about Portland, half of them are not even talking about Portland. They're talking about their feelings, their politics, their media diet, and one clip they saw 3 years ago of a guy on a unicycle yelling at the police while holding a lightsaber. Portland is actually more complicated than that. Portland still has beautiful neighborhoods, tree-lined streets, good food, good coffee, distinct architecture, access to forests, mountains, rivers, and the coast. It has tons of walkable areas, strong local character. It still has a quality to it that other cities would kill for. That's what makes Portland such a frustrating case, because it really did have a lot going for it, still does in many areas, and yet the internet talks about it like the whole thing has already been written off and condemned. It's not true. Portland is flawed, deeply flawed in some ways, but flawed is not the same thing as finished. That's the difference. There are plenty of residents who still love living there, even while being fully aware of the city's problems. There are still neighborhoods that are attractive, active, and worth spending time in. There's still beauty there, still culture, still livability. It still has a pulse. The internet has a hard time with places that are a mixed bag. It wants a city to be either a paradise or a cautionary tale. Portland is neither. It's a city trying to figure itself out while the whole country points and yells. And that, more than anything, is why it lands at number 1. Because no place on this list gets talked about with more drama than Portland. So at the end of the day, the internet is very good at turning real places into cartoons. One bad statistic, one ugly block, one political movement, one viral video, and suddenly millions of people decide they understand an entire city better than the people who actually live there. That's just the modern game now. Loud opinions, zero context, minimum confidence. Now I want to hear from you. What place in the United States do you think gets too much hate online? And which place do you think the internet is actually right about? That second one should start a healthy and mature comment section with no problems whatsoever. Everybody have a great day. Be nice to each other.